as much time to tab the committee or whatever is so choose.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second. Again, they'll both come up next week. Their council at that point can choose to spend more time on it, or vote the two nominees in, or put more nominations on the floor for the other position. We don't foreclose that. That's the motion on the floor. Is there still further discussion?
Discussion on the motion, please.
Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Council. Mayor, just to be clear on what will be on the agenda for council's consideration next week, are you saying that council will have an opportunity to receive and vote on nominees for position 10 and 11 next week of HMAP's board?
Nominees for position 10 have already been considered, but I will post position 11 next week so that nominees can be received for position 11, and they can be voted upon next week. So you can, yes, you can vote on nominees for position 10 and 11 next week.
So they be part 1 and 2 as it relates to position 11, 1 to receive and 1 to vote on.
Correct. There'll be a motion to suspend the rules and vote.
Thank you kindly. Let me say that I truly appreciate you working with us on this, because this is a very amicable resolution in my view, and I thank you. I'll ask my colleagues to support this particular position. Thank you kindly, because I think that Dr. Harris and Mr. Patterson both are super qualified candidates. I do not believe that either are conflicted out. I believe when you look at their resumes, they have very similar activities in the financial arena. So the information I received also is that they would not be conflicted out. But again, I want to thank you, Mayor, for the amicable resolution you have on the table, and I support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And certainly it is the administration's position that they are not conflicted out. It's been the HMAC's position. Councilor Noriega.
I'm not sure I'm going to get this out in a clear stream, but I'm going to try. My concern is that we're going to find ourselves in the same place in the next discussion, because what we've done is tried to work with a situation where we were uncomfortable with having one or the other not have the opportunity to serve, and so we're trying to fix it by giving everybody the opportunity. There are other communities in this city that are not represented now because of this, and I'm a little concerned that we're going to have other people come forward and we're going to be back in the same spot with somebody new, you know, in a week's time or however long it is, and I'm just really uncomfortable that we've actually resolved this. I do think that council did not want to speak ill of either person, and they think they're both qualified, and I agree with that. I think they are. But I'm not completely comfortable that this is a perfect resolution, and I just want to say that rather than be silent and have that taken as my acquiescing to this, I'm not sure about this, and I appreciate the extra time to look at it. And I guess that's really all I want to say. I'm not comfortable having a different perspective and not letting you know that, and so I'm just saying that for the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor, would you yield a little time? You are absolutely correct, and I want to affirm what I said, that nominations are closed for position 10. We previously did that. Position 11, I will post, and it will come up, and multiple nominations can be received.
If I might reclaim my time, then we have an argument again about
Yes, ma'am.
who are we gonna, you know, we're back in the same position. And so I just have some concerns that we really haven't fixed anything. We're trying to band-aid something and not solve it. And it may be fine. I just am concerned. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Councilor Rath.
Thank you. This question is for Attorney Feldman. This question is for Attorney Feldman. When we were talking about for position 11, even though we don't know who it will be, but in this case, Dr. Bernard Harris' name is up, and we talked about possible conflict of interest. Between now and next week, do we know when we will have that answer, whether or not it will be, because it will change the whole dynamics on moving forward. So will we have like a date to say yes or no, or we can move forward on that nominee? so we can just, you know, everything will just be hashed out in the atmosphere and we can all move forward with a clear conscience.
The problem, council member, is that the determination of whether or not there is a conflict of interest is something that is done by the HMES board itself. Obviously, they're supposed to make that determination in accordance with the meet and confer agreement. We don't think that they have been doing that. Nevertheless, they have been voting to exclude Mr. Badger. I can't, nobody can get them to give you an advisory opinion as to how they would deal with Dr. Harris's situation. In my view, the best thing to do is put him on the board and see what happens. We've got to address this conflict of interest issue anyway. I have been trying to do it outside of the courthouse. It takes time to work this out. But no, you're not going to have any kind of specific answer. I think you heard Councilmember Bradford. He doesn't think there's a conflict. I don't think there's a conflict, but based on what HMES has been doing so far, they are going to perceive it as a conflict, in my view.
If they treat Mr. Harris in the same way they treated Mr. Badger, he won't be prohibited from voting on a number of items. If they change their position, that would be a great benefit to the city of Houston, and we'd be happy to move forward, but it would be a reversal of course. And
So in other words, you have to step out and allow the votes, and he won't be able to participate in it.
but this is, we have to bring this to a head one way or another. We were trying to do it with the current board member. It is immaterial to us whether we do a current board member or a new board member. We have to fix it.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I agree with Councilmember Norwood and her point. I think she brought up some really valid points, and that's a concern here. And I didn't understand the issue about Mr. Badger. I got in here kind of late on that discussion. But what if there is a desire for him to be reappointed? I mean, is there any reason why we can't reappoint him? He has experience, obviously. He's been on the pension board. I'm not advocating for that, but it's just a question.
No, sir, he is eligible to be reappointed. And I think Councilmember Noriega touched upon this. There are many communities of interest that would like to see.
Sure, and just for example, you know, we worked with our friends with in organized labor early on to get Mr. Badger to see, and that was just so they would have an opportunity to be at the table as well. So I think we just have to be mindful that there are other communities, other interests, other folks that have an interest in this. And we've always kind of, as a tradition, just sorted it out amongst council and then voted. You know, so I just like to see a vote on it before I can just vote up or down. I think that's the best way to do this.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been an interesting discussion. I don't know either gentleman. They are both overly qualified to serve on this board. These are the two guys you want. If you don't have someone that has their background, they will never get to the issues. You want a quasi-conflict of interest in order for them to represent us the best way possible. If you find someone that has their qualifications, if you find someone with an accounting background, you will always have a semi-conflict of interest. I'm of the opinion you vote up or down on one of the two candidates, because I'm telling you, either of these gentlemen will do a fantastic job of representing our interests. You need to pick one, go with the best one in your heart and your mind, and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Payton.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the lawyer in me, asked me to remind you that what I'm really interested in this process here, it doesn't have anything to do with either one of these nominees who I agree are both qualified, and actually I think that we ought to appoint somebody with an alleged conflict so that we be sure and have a justiciable interest. That the court doesn't throw us out saying that this person, is not being denied a vote, so you can't litigate the matter right now. So I think it would be good to have that. I do think, as Mr. Rodriguez says, that Mr. Badger. I have no idea whether Mr. Badger wants to be reappointed. But he obviously serving on that board and continued service for a period of time, you know, may be the right thing to do. I don't know whether it is or not, and I would just like to have a process, as I said, where we can be fully informed of the pros and cons of every issue and have a public but informal discussion of the qualifications of